Good Tuesday morning. So today we're on Psalm 27, and Psalm 27 is called My Stronghold. So it says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Whom should I dread? When evildoers came against me to devour my flesh, my foes and my enemies stumbled and fell. Though an army deploys against me, my heart will not be afraid. Though a war breaks out against me, I will still be confident. I have asked one thing from the Lord, it is what I desire, to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, gazing on the beauty of the Lord and seeking him in his temple. For he will conceal me in his shelter in the day of adversity. He will hide me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Then my head will be high above my enemies around me. I will offer sacrifices in his tent with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Lord, hear my voice when I call. Be gracious to me and answer me. My heart says this about you. Seek his face. Lord, I will seek your face. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not leave me or abandon me, God of my salvation. Even if my father and mother abandon me, the Lord cares for me. Because of my adversaries, show me your way, Lord, and lead me on a level path. Do not give me over to the will of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, breathing violence. I am certain that I will see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart be courageous. Wait for the Lord." So now, to build upon this theme of faithfulness, we kind of have to, let's kind of recap what we talked about last week real fast. So last week we talked about how God's love for you does not depend on your actions as a person, and that God gave his son before any of us ever made the choice to make Jesus Lord of our life. So in that same way, God has already provided an answer to every person in the world, and his love is for every person. So the question is, every person now has the choice of, do I want to receive this love of Jesus? That's the question here. And when you receive that love, the love of Jesus heals your broken heart. And that this healing of your broken heart actually allows you to live in an identity of, I can love my enemies, I can bless those who spitefully use me, and I can just love, 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 because I have received love from the image of love. And so now we go to Psalm 27 here, and when we're talking about faithfulness, it's easy to fall into a trap of, if I'm not faithful, God doesn't love me. But no, it's from a place of love that you have the capacity to be faithful, because once again, God's love does not depend on your actions. So when you're stepping out into faithfulness, most likely what's going to happen is you're going to fall short kind of right off the bat, because that's just how starting anything is. When you're starting something out, you're bound to make mistakes. And if you don't understand that God's love is does not depend on your actions, you're going to fall into the trap of, oh, I messed up today, so that means that God doesn't love me. No. God's love for you is 100% steady. It doesn't fluctuate. And so when you're making an attempt to be faithful and it seems like you're missing the mark, there's a reassurance of, God still loves me, he's still for me, he's still blessing me, and that my desire to be faithful is what he sees most of anything. Because if there is something the Lord sees, is that he sees the heart, and he sees that your heart has a desire to be faithful. And as far as the Lord's concerned, that kind of a heart is worthy to be rewarded for. So now let's go to Psalm 27. It says, "Whom should I fear?" Now this is a big biblical principle. There's a big idea of do not fear, do not fear. In the Bible, there's actually some 365 times where it says don't fear. And it's kind of fun because people say, like, it's one do not fear for every day of the year. So every time there's something coming against you, it's wanting to put you into a place of fear. Because your ability to walk in an identity of love is directly proportional with your ability to overcome difficult circumstances. What's going to happen is that as you're making an attempt to be faithful in an identity of love, things are going to come against you. And if you go from a place of love to a place of fear, your ability to overcome these circumstances has now just been greatly diminished. Now, the cool thing is that God says that there's a promise that he'll uphold you by the promise of your right hand. So even if you're not doing this perfectly, he's still going to make sure that you're upheld. And if we go to Matthew chapter 6, verse 31, Jesus says, take no thought. In other words, he's saying, do not worry. And he says, don't worry by saying things like, what am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? Where am I going to sleep? What Jesus is saying there is, do not be scared of things happening, because once again, he's the source of salvation. He's the source of provision. He's the source of blessing. And so when it says, whom should I fear? The answer is no one, because once again, God is the source of everything. So the conflict here is, I want to love this person, but they're making it really hard for me to love them. And in one sense, somehow, some way, that there's an element of fear in that sentence. I don't know what that could be. I don't know if there's something you're going through. But something I said in the yesterday was, monitor how you react to the commands of God. And if your heart is in a place of, I don't want to do that, consider that there's probably an aspect of fear in there, an aspect of, I feel like I've done this before, but it hasn't worked for me, or I don't know what that could be, shame, guilt, or something along those lines. But you should be monitoring your heart posture. If we kind of think about it, we were all created with a capacity to feel emotions. Now, your emotions have a desire to control you. It's if you just let your emotions run wild, you'll just be all over the place. You'll be happy, you'll be sad, you'll be angry, you'll be mad, you'll sulk, you'll be and then one day you have like the greatest day of your life. You're on cloud 9, and then right after that, you're all the way back to sulking. So that's what happens if you let your emotions control you. But a better way to think about emotions is that if there's fear coming in, that's a sign that your intimacy with Jesus has just gone down, is a great way to look at it. Because a person who's intimate with Jesus is a person who's secure. Because once again, a person who's intimate with Jesus, they're saying, who do I fear? The Lord is my stronghold. Who do I dread? All these things come against me, but at the very end it says, I'm going to wait for the Lord. So that's why intimacy with Jesus brings you stability, is because you're always reminded that he is awesome and he's a provider. And so with tying this back to faithfulness, it all comes back to a fact of, if you're afraid, if there's fear creeping in, you have a responsibility to stop everything you're doing and reestablish intimacy with Jesus. Because once again, your ability to be in an identity of love will greatly make it, will give you the capacity to overcome difficult circumstances. Because if you're in a place of fear, your capacity to overcome difficult circumstances is almost zero. And all you're doing at that point is you're relying on a miracle from God. But we don't need to rely on miracles. We just need to rely on the character of God. And the way for you to see this character of God in your life is to follow a spiritual law of faithfulness. And one of those aspects of an aspect of that spiritual law is, do not be afraid. but instead have an identity of love, because love was extended to you. Okay, so hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday.